candidate who grew up in Astoria my entire life. So when you go to the ballot box on November 2nd, make sure you vote for Edwin de Jesus, the only true Astorian running as an independent for New York City Council's 22nd District.
Hi, my name is Stephen Wright. I'm running for mayor of the city of Forks. I'd like to talk to you today about some of my platforms, some of the initiatives I'd like to get started with if I'm elected. First of all, the funding, most of it will be coming from the American Rescue Plan and other grants. And the issues I'd like to start addressing is one, COVID, which is a major concern with everybody, including the food shortages that are now affecting the schools. I believe if we use some of the vacant land to grow some of our food for the schools and other people needy in the community. We might be able to provide a better path towards providing food for everybody that's sustainable and reliable. I believe that we can increase our sterilization techniques to reduce COVID spread and other pathogens using automation of UV lights and timers. I'd like to talk to you some about our infrastructure that we have problems with right now. Many of you know that we have unreliable internet, and for some that's a minor inconvenience, but for others that means that you can't work from home, or your ATM at the work where you're working at isn't working, or the owners aren't making any money because the transactions can't go forward. The City of Forks government officials.
This video playback
government
glitch
functions
was not
also
an
are
issue
affected by
during
this.
testing,
I plan and I want
the thing that's different right now is my video connection with YouTube, period.
to bring in
So I'm
reliable
going
internet
to need you to
for the
please
city of Forks.
go
Another big issue
offline from the green room.
that we have today is our playground. Some of us that go to the playground notice that there are rusted bars and other things that need to be painted and maintained on the playground.
I need you to
Haven't been,
please go
and I think it may be
offline
because of our
and
budget
watch
issues with the city.
until I text you to come back, period.
That brings
Hillary,
me on
we're
to
going
the
to
next issue
transition
where
to you
we
live
have an
after Stephen is done
economy issue,
talking.
as far as producing.
Then you will go offline while your interview with Bart is playing.
Enough revenue to meet the demands of the city. I believe bringing in hemp farming and producing could add additional revenue as well as educational opportunities for the city of Forks. I believe if we keep on the path of being sustainable and providing for our community, then we can move forward and progress as a community together. Thank you, and vote for me.
Your mama's a bum. Young lady, correct.
No, I'm a woman. I'm not a young lady. I am a woman.
First with your mama. No one, watch this, has ever called me.
Chester is unique.
Chester is a lost and forgotten kingdom.
Chester is potential.
Hi, I'm Kearni Warren. Chester is my home, and it has been for generations. I grew up in the Ruth L. Bennett Homes neighborhood with my mother, Reverend Bernice Warren, who taught me the values of a true Chester leader: respect, dignity, and most of all, truth. I'm running for Chester City Council to continue my mother's legacy and to restore our city's leadership to these values. The mayor's treatment of our residents at that meeting represents the horrible way City Hall has treated this city, our home. It's time to take out the trash. It's time to restore our parks and infrastructure. It's time to redevelop our waterfront for Chester residents, not incinerators or soccer stadiums. This November, vote for me, Kearni Warren, for Chester City Council.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hillary Kane, and I have the pleasure of hosting tonight's Green Wave Showcase, We are going to hear from 3 amazing candidates who are running for local office this year as Green Party representatives. Bart Everson in the city of New Orleans, Kearni Warren, whose great video you just saw, running in the city of Chester outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Cam Gordon, who is seeking re-election for city council in Minneapolis. I represent the Coordinated Campaign Committee of the Green Party of the United States. We are the committee at the national level that supports candidates and their campaigns through training and financial support, and of course, promotion and publicity like tonight. You can learn more about how to support our candidates at gp.org/ccc. So I think the first video we have up is I had a chance to talk to Bart Everson late last week, who's running for city council in the city of New Orleans. He's running a dynamic race. As you can imagine, New Orleans is a city that's been hit hard by a lot of the current events. And so let's take a listen to Bart and his race for office. Welcome back, everyone. I am here with Bart Everson, who is running for city council as an at-large candidate in the city of New Orleans. Welcome, Bart.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem. So start off by telling us a bit about yourself and how you decided to run for office this year.
Well, I've been in New Orleans since 1999. So I like to tell people I've been living here since the last century. Even though I grew up in Indiana and spent one very important year for me in northern Sweden. Anyway, in recent years, of course, I've been a Green Party organizer for 20 years, but recently I've been involved with a lot of climate activism locally and nationally. This led to one of my fellow activists in the local community, reaching out to me and asking if I consider running for office as a climate candidate.
Nice.
They had a number of other social and climate justice activists that they approached. But you know how it is to actually run for office. Everything has to line up in a certain way. I've been asked this question over the years before, and it never was the right time for me. This time, though, I asked my family, and they gave me the thumbs up, and so I said yes. And so I kind of tell people I was drafted into this race. I'm a reluctant candidate because I have, I've got a full-time job already. I'm very comfortable in my routines, but I felt like I couldn't stay in those comfortable routines any longer. I had to get out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And put myself out there specifically to get people talking about the biggest crisis that's facing humanity. And that is, of course, the climate crisis. We have a lot of other issues, but this issue is going to make all those other issues worse if we don't deal with it.
Right. And I imagine that, ironically, you probably started running for office before Ida and this latest wave of the evidence of the climate crisis, but in some ways, the sense of urgency is real. And, New Orleans, I think many of us, those of us who live outside the city, far outside in my case, in Philadelphia, we think of New Orleans in some ways as ground zero in the US for the climate crisis. I don't know how it feels where you are, but so talk about just the timeliness of this race and, it's the climate crisis, but also, New Orleans reeling from the pandemic. You've been hit hard by that. New Orleans been reeling from, racial injustice for generations. How is that all coming together in this campaign?
It certainly is all coming together, it seems like. In fact, we would be practically having this election right now if it wasn't for Hurricane Ida, which has postponed the whole thing by 5 weeks. So it's actually happening in November instead. Would have been in early October here. So at the most recent forum, one of the other candidates came to me and said, Bart, I can't believe everything you've been talking about was borne out, has been proven true by this Hurricane Ida. So, we all know it. It was this storm, of course, that, intensified so rapidly over the Gulf of Mexico because the waters of the Gulf of Mexico are so hot. And this is exactly what was predicted. Strengthened so rapidly that we can't actually, even evacuate the city in a timely fashion. So it's caused people to sit up and take notice. And of course, it wreaked death and destruction, especially, New Orleans was spared the direct hit, but the parishes to our west, right. Here it is a month after that hurricane, and people are still without power. People are still living in tents. And keep in mind, and this is in the richest country in the world, in a state that is like the oil and gas production, one of the most productive areas for that kind of stuff. Of course, it's the exploitation of those natural resources that have led to the warming of the climate through air pollution, by putting all this carbon into the atmosphere. Anybody who's watching this probably knows that. But a lot of people that I talk to out on the campaign trail, they don't know it, or at least they don't think about it that much.
Right.
And so I've been saying we need to be, we live in one of the cities that's most vulnerable to climate change. We really are on the front lines. And therefore we need to be at the forefront of meeting this challenge. We need to have this issue, the climate crisis, informing every discussion and decision that we make about public policy here at the local level. And we need to be at the forefront of meeting that challenge. And in terms of what that actually comes down to, the number one thing I kept highlighting was we need to hold Entergy accountable. Entergy is our local, shareholder-driven, for-profit utility that the City Council of New Orleans actually has a unique regulatory authority. So this all became very timely when we had just such a hurricane hit. We're reeling in the after effects. It revealed that the infrastructure, the flood control infrastructure, which was invested in massively after Hurricane Katrina, held up pretty well. In fact, the Army Corps of Engineers looked at climate change projections as opposed to current conditions. They looked at these climate predictions for the future and delivered a better system to us. So that was very forward-looking. But on the other hand, the other major piece of infrastructure, the electrical grid, was revealed to be not in such good shape.
Right.
That we didn't have the investment that we needed there. And so, I've been saying we need to hold Entergy accountable. That was borne out by the failure of the electrical grid. It was a spectacular, I felt like I was proven right. I would rather not have been.
Right.
But there it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think as we've talked about before, the Green Party sometimes feels like, we're the mythical Cassandra, right? Able to predict the future, but no one believes us. And not that we want to say, I told you so, but, it's kind of telling that the other candidate came up to you and said that. I think in that vein, I think a lot of folks think of the Greens as, we have all the critiques and we can point out what's wrong, but do we have solutions? And so talk to me about, not aside from, holding Entergy accountable sounds like a huge, important piece of your campaign platform. I know that you're also campaigning on the Green New Deal and what we like to say is the real eco-socialist Green New Deal. So tell me more about what your solutions are for New Orleans moving forward into this next challenging period of the city's future.
Thanks for asking, because this is such an important question, even since, and I recognize that I have a lot of learning to do about this. So I've been continuing to engage in that process. And even since the last time we talked, I've continued to really try to understand what it is about the kind of Green New Deal proposals that we hear so much about that kind of miss the mark a little bit, or a lot. The problem with a lot of what of course, the term Green New Deal, I use it, I do use it out on the campaign trail because I figure it's something people will recognize. They'll kind of key in. And at the basic idea of decarbonizing the economy or changing the footing of our economy, to not create the conditions of, putting carbon into the atmosphere and, polluting the atmosphere and creating global warming. That at its core is fundamentally something I think we have broad agreement on. When people talk about a Green New Deal. Yes, absolutely. That's to me the essence of it. But how you go about doing that? Unfortunately, a lot of proposals kind of reproduce the same economic models that we already have. And we try to direct these kind of for-profit entities in a slightly different direction, but they're still driven by kind of an underlying motive that we have to extract maximum profit from the natural resources of the earth. When really, so first and foremost with the Green New Deal, we need to redefine our understanding of the parameters of success. What is a successful economy? And the way that we tend to think about this, of course, is with extraction of resources to create growth and just continual growth. And if the economy is not growing, then we're losing. It's not successful. We need to reframe that, right? We need to think about the things that really matter, the actual values that we really have. So things like actual usefulness instead of profit, or social and environmental well-being. If we can raise those up as our primary indicators of success, then we'll do a lot better. Of course, within that framework, then we have to have self-sufficiency and decentralization to put the economy on a new footing. And we have to think about what the purpose of the economy is. It's to make a stronger and more sustainable community. And I see that as probably, first and foremost, you think about food production. Sure, we need to promote urban agriculture and so forth, but a city like New Orleans is never going to be able to feed itself. So we have to develop really healthy and mutually equitable relationships with the outlying areas. Because we know a sustainable economy, the economy of the future, and we've known this for decades, is going to be one with the shortest distance between the site of production and consumption and disposal of hopefully very minimal waste. That all has to happen in a very local area. So we need to think in terms of regional sustainability, regional self-sufficiency.
Right, local living economies, yeah.
Yes, and then to direct the work that needs to be done into new models of social organization. We just have to fundamentally recognize that if we're facing an existential threat, the social order that we know has failed us. So we need to look for new social constructions. So things like worker-led cooperatives. And we don't have to look that far. We have in Jackson, Mississippi, a great example called Cooperation Jackson, which is kind of well known. It's still emerging, a network of worker cooperatives. And then so when we see other cities implementing a Green New Deal at the municipal level, like New York has said, we're going to demand energy efficiency in these big apartment buildings and so forth. We can do the same thing here in New Orleans, but we need to foster that the jobs that are created through that into these kind of a more cooperative framework.
Yeah, great, inspiring. So tell me a little bit more about what it has been like to campaign in these times. COVID has obviously thrown things for a loop, though I get the sense that some door-to-door campaigning is back in action, but then having Ida hit right as sort of things are ramping up. So tell me what it's been like to just get out there and meet people, and how have you been doing that?
Well, there's been there's been good and bad parts. Frankly, the fact that so many meetings now are held on Zoom has made things easier because I don't have to worry about getting to the other side of the city. I can just sit down in front of my computer and join a candidate forum, and my voice.
Shirt and tie on the waist up, pajamas on the waist down.
Yeah, it could be. You never know. So there's that. That has actually created a more accessible candidate experience, and not just for the candidates, but also for the general public. Right? It's easier for people to actually come out to a meeting if they don't have to come out.
Right.
So that's been good. Of course, I would rather have had it without the death and destruction that the pandemic has wreaked. What I've discovered, though, is, I got into this race because I felt people are not talking about this crucial issue, the climate crisis. And now that I've been I've been through the mill a few times now with these forums already, I can understand why, because there's a dynamic that prevails in these events. And that's that candidates generally try to tell voters what they think they want to hear in order to get elected. I mean, I'm not even criticizing people for that. That's just the natural dynamic of it. Even if you're getting people whipped up and angry about something, you feel like it's something they want to be angry about.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is not something that people really want to hear about. It's something I feel they need to hear about, but they haven't been, and they generally feel kind of disempowered. And there is a broad lack of education, I think, across the country and here in Louisiana, in particular, where people don't even really understand. They have not connected all the dots of what's happening. So the challenge for me has been to sketch out the problem, try to tap into a little bit of fear that, oh my gosh, what's at risk? Everything is at risk. Everything we love is at risk. Don't misunderstand. This is not just a matter of like, oh, it's a little hotter. Right? This has profound implications. We should not take the habitability of our planet for granted. So I got to say all that, but that's just for starters, because that would be a horrible place to leave people.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Then I have to shift to, but we have to have the courage to face, what needs to be done for us, for our children, for the planet, for cute, cuddly animals, all of that stuff, and to say, here's how we can do it. And it could actually increase our quality of life. We could actually have a better life by making, these changes to our society and so forth. And by the way, do that all in 60 seconds.
Right. Well, I'm glad we had a chance to speak for more than 60 seconds tonight, but I think we are at time. So I just want to thank you again for sharing a moment and a glimpse into your campaign. Do you want to give us some final words about how folks can get involved and find out more information about your campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. I would encourage anybody who's interested to visit barteverson.com. It's just my name.com. And you can sign up for the campaign newsletter. You can make a donation. Just read about some of the policies and proposals, which I think are broadly applicable. So I hope that it inspires people to think about what we can do, what we should do, what we need to be doing, and perhaps even to get out of your comfort zone and to think about running for office. We need a whole slate of climate candidates.
That's
I
right.
think that the Green Party offers that. And finally, whoever wins in these election cycles that are taking place, here, there, and everywhere across the country, whoever wins, we need to hold those people accountable for climate action and climate justice.
Well said. Thank you so much. And then just on behalf of the Coordinated Campaign Committee, who we support candidates and campaigns running for office in the Green Party. And if you are inspired, like Bart, to get out of your comfort zone and run for office in your own local community, please tell us all about it. You can go to gp.org/run and sign up for resources and support. So thank you so much, Bart. Have a wonderful rest of the day and good luck in November.
Thank you, Hillary.
Take care. Great. Well, it was really a pleasure to speak with Bart and to learn about his campaign in the city of New Orleans, which is really the hotbed of the climate crisis in the United States. As I think I mentioned earlier, New Orleans has really been hit hard, as we all know, from not just this most recent round of storms, but for years since Katrina and before. So it's so important that a candidate like Bart is bringing those issues to the forefront in a city like New Orleans. And if New Orleans is on the front line of the climate crisis, I want to take us a little further north, closer to my home city of Philadelphia, to a town just outside of Philadelphia, Chester, Pennsylvania, which I would say is on the front lines of the environmental justice movement in this country. We're going to be joined shortly by Kearni Warren, who is a candidate running for city council in that city. Again, just outside of Philadelphia, a little further down I-95 along the river, a community that has certainly seen some better days economically. But when we hear from Kearni, we're going to hear more about her city of Chester and why she is running for office. So Kearni, welcome to the program. It's so great to see you.
Thank
and
you.
Great to have a fellow Pennsylvanian.
Yes, thank you, Hillary. It's so good to see you again.
So I don't know if you caught any of that interview with Bart, but we were talking about New Orleans. Obviously, it's a city that's been hit hard by the climate crisis. And to some degree, when I think of the city of Chester as a Philadelphia resident, Chester has also been really hit hard and in different ways. I think, Chester is one of those cities that, unfortunately, like Camden, New Jersey, is just a hotbed of, environmental racism, quite frankly. And so tell us a little bit more about your city, what the good things and the bad, and what has motivated you to run for office in your city.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Chester. It's been my home for generations. And there's a lot of good here in Chester, historically as well. We have a rich culture here in Chester. Martin Luther King Jr. got his start here in Chester. He attended seminary here. He preached his first sermon here. This was a stop along from the north to the south to the south to the north. And unfortunately, we are really suffering a lot of issues. And environmental racism is just one of the many issues that we're experiencing here. And as you know, environmental racism affects Black and Brown communities, poorer Black and Brown communities at greater rates. The residents, we live closer to the environmental hazards, the facilities that are causing air pollution. And so here in Chester, it's no different. We have Covanta, which is the largest trash incinerator in the nation, is located here in Chester. They burn up to approximately 3,500 tons of municipal waste and industrial waste per day. We are also suffering with solid waste of sewage. Right now in Delaware County, the western half of Delaware County, when they flush their toilet, it comes to Chester. And the Solid Waste Authority right now, they're deciding whether or not they want to double the waste that we're receiving here in Chester to include the entire county's waste coming to Chester. And with the trash so we have the trash incinerator and we have the sewage incinerator. With the trash incinerator, we burn trash. We burn the country's trash. We burn New York's trash. We burn Ocean City, Maryland's trash. We burn Oklahoma's trash and more. And we burn 21 counties in Pennsylvania, the trash of 21 counties in Pennsylvania. So, and with all of that air pollution, we know that it causes health issues. The American Lung Association did a report in 2019 listing all of the health hazards that come from living around air pollution. And the thing with that is here in Chester, it's not just Chester. The air pollution has approximately a 17-mile radius. So it's our surrounding communities as well. Although we are here and we're affected by it the most, it does travel. Those people, the residents that are living near Covanta, the trash that's burned causes toxic ash, and so the residue, the ash, it falls on neighbors' cars and their porch furniture, and so children can't go outside and play, and so we have a lot of health issues here in Chester due to air pollution. We have a high rate of cancer here. We have the highest children's asthma hospitalization here. Our low birth weight is about 2 to 3 times the state's average. We have low infant mortality rates here. So we are in a climate crisis and a public health crisis here as well. And that public health crisis doesn't just fall onto environmental racism. It is the access to food as well. It is the gun violence that we're suffering with here. It's all of the social issues that forgotten and under-resourced communities have. This city has been forgotten. It has been ignored, except for when financial decisions are being made. And those financial decisions that are being made are not including or benefiting the residents. One can argue that some of those decisions actually harm us, like not having good community partners or good community neighbors in businesses.
No. Well, thank you. I mean, that is a lot that you guys are grappling with. And so I assume that part of, your reason for running for office is to address some of this stuff. So tell us about your solutions, what you're campaigning on. What's the message that you're trying to bring to the voters of Chester?
My main message that I am bringing to my neighbors, because I am a resident here, is the power of the people. So my slogan, which is not a slogan, it's the truth, but it's people, power, purpose, because we the people have the power to live a life of purpose. And I want my neighbors to know that we hold the power in our hands. We demand what happens to us and what doesn't happen to us if we stand up and raise our voices. Change cannot come when you are quiet. You have to stand up. You have to be vocal about the things that you don't like. And sometimes what's very unfortunate, Hillary, is that when you're used to certain behaviors, certain actions, you oftentimes can normalize what you're experiencing, and you don't realize that what you're experiencing is different from what others are experiencing, or that it's not right, that it shouldn't exist, it shouldn't happen. So I want to empower my neighbors. I want to empower the residents. And so I am running on to reduce the lack of transparency here in the city, the lack of opportunities, and the lack of services here, and move that into successful communities, healthy communities, and safe communities. Again, I am a person who is an advocate for health care, and I am a advocate and activist for social justice and racial equity. And a lot of the issues that my community suffers from is from a lack of equity, social inequity, racial inequity. And it just destroys me when I attend different types of meetings and I have to plead the case for human life in front of people who don't look like me, when sometimes they may not give you the respect of even looking up at you. And so it's very troubling. And I want to make a real difference here. We've had new leadership. We've had new leaders here, but we haven't had a new mindset. We've had the same type of mindset, and I'm bringing a new mindset to my community.
That's great. Well, I imagine that running as a Green is something that brings a new mindset to the political scene in Chester. Tell me why you decided to run as a Green, and what have your conversations been with people who perhaps have been just so used to this sort of two-party system that, like that in some ways has been normalized, and people don't realize that there's something different. So what is it like to run as a Green in Chester?
To run as a Green, I'll answer. I think you mean to run as a Green, and then as in Chester, or was there two questions? Well, okay.
Yeah, I guess, why did you decide to run as a Green, and then what has it been like taking that message to folks in your community?
Well, Hillary, America, the country, we are in a disarray. COVID has laid bare the cracks that has been in all of our systems for years, particularly our healthcare system. I come from SEIU Healthcare Pennsylvania and United Home Care Workers of Pennsylvania unions as a political organizer and a member organizer. And so working for a union and being a member of a union, your mindset is a little different from the average person, or the average politician, I should say. You come from a place of for the people. And so I am not about a party, I'm about the people. And the Green Party's values ring with me: nonviolence, ecology, social justice, democracy, and then the platform, and then the 10 values that the Green Party stands on. It just rings so clear, and it deals with everything that is happening in society right now. Those 10 values, the four issues on the platform, deal with everything that we are experiencing right now in society. And so, as a Green candidate, I've made history in Chester. I am the first minor party and the first Green candidate to get on the ballot here, which is very exciting. And it has not been a problem. Surprisingly, at first I was surprised. I thought that it would be an issue with the residents, because that's what was being told to me. I think that's a kind of oppressive. There's a reason why things are told to you, to try to stop you from achieving them. So, but once I got out knocking doors and talking to my neighbors, no one cared. No one cared about a party. I didn't even really get asked what party I'm with. And if I did, if someone asked me what was I running on, what party I was running with, it didn't matter. And I'll tell you something. This is across parties, whether they were Democrats or Republicans. They did not care. The residents here are just so ready for a difference. And I want to be that voice that's not afraid to speak up. And that's another positive piece of running as a Green. I have the ability to speak truth. I don't have to think about, am I going to upset a donor? Am I saying the right things? I can speak and say whatever it is that I want to say that is truth, and how I feel and what the people feel.
Exactly. Wonderful. Well, speaking of that, freedom to speak the truth, I assume it's because of, partly because of not taking any corporate contributions or, anything like that. That is one of the things that distinguishes us as Greens. Though you do need donations and contributions. So why don't you tell us, are there any milestones, any fundraising goals you have in this last stretch? We're about a month out from the end of the race. How can folks get involved and support your campaign?
So first, I just want to thank my donors from the first half of this race. Thank you so very much. You have no idea how appreciative myself and my team we are of you. Thank you to the Green Party of Pennsylvania for endorsing me and donating and SEIU Healthcare Pennsylvania. I could not have. This has been just overwhelming for me because I did not know what I was getting into when I decided to join this race at the last minute. I was not in the primary. I didn't know I was on the ballot until after August 2nd. A week after August 2nd is when I officially started campaigning. So I am late into this game, but the people have supported me. So right now, to get over this last hump, I am in such a great position to win. I have the largest social media presence right now on social media than my opponents. My rates of people saying yes that they will vote for me are really high, and I have an advantage as a Green candidate. I can talk to all of the voters. I'm not party specific. I can speak to everyone because my campaign is for the people. It's for the voters of Chester. So to get me over this last hump, we really do need donations. We need money for our sample ballots, which is very important. You know, if you run for office, the sample ballots to be handed out at the polls, very important because people go by imagery, and if you give them the exact what the ballot looks like, they're more inclined to go ahead and vote that way. Mailers, we would like to send out mailers for this last hump. And then social media boost. Although we are doing very well on social media, we want to boost our posts so that it can reach more people. And then finally, very, very important, we need boots on the ground. I have a very small team, and I'm so proud of the accomplishments that we have made thus far, but I really do need boots on the ground to get me over the hump. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, now I understand why you see a candidate and you think their race is going so very well, and then all of a sudden, you know, they drop out the race, and you hear, well, they ran out of money. Not ever running for office, I never understood what that meant. Now that I am running for office, I understand what that means, and I don't want to be in that position. I would love to continue to make history with the Green Party, not just being on this ballot in this predominantly Black city, but to also win a seat as the first Green candidate in Chester, Pennsylvania, and to further my desire to change legislation in healthcare, for voting rights, for racial justice, for education, police reform. You know, so I definitely need as much help as I can get to carry me over the next hump.
Nice. Well, we wish you the best of luck. I know my local, we're planning to be out for you in a few weeks, knocking on doors. Really, it's been exciting to see your race. Chester is a relatively small city, and I think it's a very doable and winnable race. And so I wish you the best of luck, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. That was Kearni Warren, who is running for city council in the city of Chester, Pennsylvania. And it's warren4chester.com. That's Warren, the number 4chester.com. So we're going to switch gears again and move towards the Midwest. And we're going to hear from someone who is not a first-time candidate like Kearni, but who's actually running for re-election. Cam Gordon is one of our most well-known and exciting elected Greens. He's been serving on the City Council of Minneapolis for several years. And I had the pleasure of speaking with him earlier this week to get his perspective on running for re-election in these times as a Green candidate. So let's turn it over to that video where we hear from Cam Gordon. Well, welcome everyone. I am here with Cam Gordon, who is seeking re-election for the Minneapolis City Council. Cam, why don't you introduce yourself to folks and tell us a little bit about your time in office so far?
Great, thanks for having me on. So I was very active in the Greens early on in Minnesota. I was part of their founding convention in 1994, served on the coordinating committee of the state party. So I've been very involved in the Greens and really appreciate the platform and all the people who are working and building kind of a movement. I think it makes a big difference to have Greens elected in office. I was first elected in 2005, and I ran on the four pillars. I ran on social and economic justice, grassroots democracy, ecological wisdom, peace and nonviolence. I was really upfront about that. I promised people that I would use those values to guide what I do and how I do it. And I've tried to do it ever since. And I've worked hard to influence policy. It's been interesting because in Minneapolis, all the rest of the council, and there's 13 of us, all the rest of them have been Democrats. And in Minnesota, we call it the Democratic Farmer Labor Party because they merged back in the 40s. And so I've been the one outside of that. So that's been both challenging and also really a great opportunity. I think my colleagues on the council gave me a little extra slack, and they were tolerant because they realized, oh, I wasn't, and also they couldn't influence me nearly as much because I was a Green and I was on the outside. And so I would bring up issues that seemed like they were fringe issues or seemed like they were on the outside, and they would tolerate that. And what would happen is time and again, as I kept working on these issues, people on the council and in the city would realize, oh, those are interesting. Those are popular. So there's many examples that I could give of how I was able to kind of find a wedge issue to push forward on and really make a difference. Just a tiny example I'll use. I know we don't have all day, but Minneapolis basically had outlawed farming like a lot of cities probably did. You couldn't grow food for money. You couldn't use your land to let somebody else grow food on it for money or anything. We had trouble keeping chickens. Beehives had been banned. So we started talking about local foods and what we could do about our food economy. And as a Green, local food production kind of hits all the values. You know, it's a climate change, ecological wisdom, sustainability, and it's also really healthy. It's also community-based economics, and it can be. So we were able to bring that forward, and certainly the eyebrows were raised and eyes were rolling when I was talking about market gardens and more greenhouses and chickens and bees and that. But people in Minneapolis were ready for it and they wanted to do it, and so we basically have now legalized farming again. Nobody's doing a big farm on industrial land, but they could if they wanted to, and we could have tractors out there, but we've got lots of smaller ones. But it's just one of those key issues that makes a big difference.
That's great.
Leave it there.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of folks don't realize that the Green Party does have folks elected to offices across the country, and you're certainly one of the, more visible folks. But, what has it meant? And you've already talked about this a little bit, but more recently, maybe in this last term, particularly with the pandemic, obviously Minneapolis being sort of the, ground zero for sort of the racial reckoning that we've had this past year. Like, what has been the role of you as a Green elected official in this most recent term?
Well, it's actually been kind of exciting to see some things almost coming to fruition out of this crisis. And we've really had a hard time, I think, as a country, but certainly in the city of Minneapolis with the murder of George Floyd and the civil unrest that followed. But there really was kind of an awakening, a great awakening in the city that, this structural, institutional, historic racism is plaguing us still to this day. And we've been looking at it a lot in recent years. In the last term, especially, we have a whole comp plan, and racial equity is key to that, and so is climate change. And I can tell you 9 years ago, those things weren't very much on the radar. in terms of city government, but we took a lot of time to build those up. We actually were able to, in those 9 years, create a division of race and equity that's staffed. We also have a sustainability office that went from 1 person to 8 people now. And we have a climate action plan that was developed, and all of those things, which made a big difference. I had also been talking about reparations, and still are for a while. And now this year, we've actually created a Truth and Reconciliation Commission that's going to start looking at that. And in Minneapolis, we have a large Indigenous population too. And so I worked on some significant resolutions in the past about truth telling and what is our history. And so we've been raising awareness about that, but that's folded into Truth and Reconciliation. And when we look at reparations, we realize that we have significant reparations that are due Indigenous people in this state and certainly in this city. So we're working on those, and I think it's really helped to have a green on the council. One of the things that I think happened, however, and I don't know how you fix this, or maybe this is just a fine thing, but as the issues that the Greens were working on became more and more popular, we didn't necessarily see a bunch of people wanting to run green. Mm-hmm. What we saw was a bunch of the people from the other party wanting to adopt those issues. So in a way, it was great when I was seeing other kind of progressives coming into office who supported these kinds of things and more. And alternatives to policing is something we've been working on for a long time. When I first ran, and I ran on peace and nonviolence, my opponent was saying, well, this, you're not involved in international affairs on the council. What are you talking about? And I'd have to say peace in our homes and on our streets, and actually proactively building nonviolence and looking at it. And we had looked at it as a public health issue, and we were talking about prevention and intervention and what do we do? And then more people were running on that kind of approach, and that we need to find alternatives and a more holistic approach to safety. And so now it's really resonating. Yeah. And I guess it's a good thing when we see our other parties adopting our issues and championing them, and we try to celebrate that. But I went into this with a belief that we could grow a multi-party democracy too, and that hasn't necessarily happened. And
well, let's explore that further, because I think this is something that a lot of us who have been at this for a long time, the sort of, at least on the left, the sort of politics of what's possible is a lot different than it certainly was 20 years ago when I became a Green. And yet there is still something that distinguishes Greens from even progressive Democrats. And so, certainly in terms of where we take our money from, and I'm just wondering, and the idea of political independence, of creating that multi-party democracy. And so I'm wondering, what do you think still distinguishes us? Yes, it's wonderful. We need allies. We need people to kind of adopt our ideas in order to, make traction. But also, what is still the reason, you're still a Green, still running on the Green Party line. And so, what's sort of the reason, what's your reason for being and staying with the party?
Well, there's still things probably that got me interested in the first place. I see a problem with the two-party system. I see a problem with almost the big tent mentality. And it's great that the platforms of the bigger parties change, or they kind of go with what's popular a little bit, and they adopt some of the best policies that we have. But there's something great about having something that's based more on a platform and on key values that's just true. And of course, the party, if we wanted to, we could add another value, or we could change our platform. So it is dynamic. I don't want to say that it isn't. But I think the Greens have always thought that there was something more important than personality and more important than winning. Whereas you see the other two parties, sometimes it seems like, it's the big personalities that do it. And whatever that personality is, we don't care if they can win for us. and that will be our representative now, and it will look good. I don't think the Greens see that. And I always think it's important to say the members are really what's important. The platform is what's important. And of course, once I'm elected, I have a really deep obligation to represent all the people of my ward, to forge and mold consensus with them as I'm trying to move forward my values. I have to say, one of the things that I work hard to do is show them that those values might just be their values too, and let's work on our shared values together, because I think we all realize we're going to be a better city if, you know, peace and love and a good planet are there, and we're working for it together, and people get that. So the values that resonate with the people in my ward, so that's really helpful. That's probably why I was able to be elected and have been able to be reelected. But I also wish we could create more of a multi-party democracy so we could even get more voices at the table. I think a city like Minneapolis is big enough and has enough Republicans that they should probably have some kind of voice at the table, forging a consensus with me and others. So that's a real trick. I don't know, we need to move beyond just having ranked choice voting or instant runoff voting, which we do in Minneapolis, which is great. But I think it distracted us a little bit from getting proportional representation, which is really when we can have a government where the tent is actually where the legislators are and where they're making the rules. It's not something over on the side that other people can't see and they're negotiating it kind of. I think that's much helpful. I want to keep building alternative parties, but especially keep building the Greens and things that resonate with me, because it's kind of our responsibility to do that. And I would love to see the Greens be more successful as the Greens in elected office throughout the country. And I think it makes a big difference. And I think I'm an example of maybe how it could. I certainly can't take credit for changes, and, you know, society changes and gets more enlightened and more educated. But I think the Greens deserve a whole lot of credit when people now are talking about climate change so seriously, when we hear people talking about a Green New Deal all over everywhere, when people are talking about rights for workers, raising the minimum wage, all of those things, we deserve credit for bringing those up. And I think we need to keep a healthy alternative Green Party out here for people to come to.
Great. So let's look forward to this coming election, and what are you sort of up against in this particular race, and what are you hoping to accomplish in this next term should you be reelected? So what's at stake in this election?
There's really some big issues that the city is facing. I think at such a big and dramatic time too, that it has inspired more people to run for office. I ran unopposed last election, and now there's 4 people running against me this election, and it actually feels like it's coming from all directions. There is a Republican running, although not campaigning. There's a couple of Democrats, and then there's a Democratic Socialist running. So it's a strange feeling where I might be like a semi-moderate in the race, which hasn't happened before. And I'm not sure if that's really necessarily the case when it comes to kind of the ideology and the issues, but that's how it probably looks. So it's more competitive than it has been. So I'm working really hard, knocking on doors. I have a bunch of postcards I'm sending out today. Working really hard on many fronts. And I think we have a great opportunity next term to make some really big changes. We have a couple things on the ballot that I fought really hard to get on the ballot here. One of them has to do with dismantling or overhauling the way we do public safety and creating a new Department of Public Safety. That actually was something that I brought forward first in 2018. Not exactly the same, but changing this part of the charter.
Right.
And this year, it's a citizen petition that got it on the ballot, which was great. And so there's lots of enthusiasm, but the city's also really divided. If it passes, that'll give us an opportunity to kind of look at it from new and build a new Department of Public Safety that I think will could be a model for the country and more. And I'm hoping people from all over the country will help us build that with their expertise and their wisdom and their feeling about it.
I mean, that's getting a lot of traction in the national media. I was listening to a story on NPR the other day about, the calls for defunding the police from last summer. And they did a spotlight on 3 cities. I think it was New York, Minneapolis, and I can't remember the third city, but basically it was Chicago, I think. And, all democratically controlled cities. And basically in every place except for Minneapolis, like city, police budgets had increased despite the call over the summer and, this past year to decrease the budget, to abolish the police, defund the police. And yet in Minneapolis, and it sounds like you had a hand in that, even as early as 2018, pushing for the creation of a new Department of Public Safety. And so, I think that's a great example of how all it takes is in some ways one person who is not, in some ways reading from the same playbook as everybody else to sort of push a really actually radical change, combined with the sort of public sentiment that finally occurred last year to sort of really advance that agenda. So that's fabulous. I guess, before we wrap up, one thing that strikes me is, this sort of call to get more folks elected to office across the country as Greens. And so what would you say to people who might be watching this, who are thinking, 2022 might be a year for local elections, depending on what part of the country you're in, certainly 2023. What's your message to folks who might be watching to, what does it take to run for office and how do you get started?
Well, it takes a lot, although you don't have to think you need everything set up before you start. People should hear that I ran for office twice before I actually won. So I did a lot of this learning as I go. Mm-hmm. I ran for state representative first. This was when I was on a committee that was seeking candidates to run as a Green when the party was just starting. And I realized we'll need to step up. I think I told myself, if we're not running candidates in 2 years, why am I involved in this? And then I thought, well, I'll try running. Very interesting. Then I stayed involved in my community, and I really recommend that 2 things people think about carefully is where they are and what they want to help do in their community before they run. I think having kind of a longer term plan is excellent. I also think it's really important that you ask yourself, do I actually care about these people in my district? I think you're going to be effective as a candidate and you're going to be effective as an elected official if you actually care about, can empathize with, want to help, agree with people in your community. So if you're deciding where to live or those kinds of things, think about, and I think you should think about that anyway, live with people maybe who share your values and share your view and want the kind of neighborhood and community that you want. But that's really important if you're going to run for office. And then I think getting involved, and in fact, to find out if you like and resonate with them, sometimes it helps. I was involved in my neighborhood association. We have neighborhood groups in the city of Minneapolis. I became president of my neighborhood group. That gave me a chance to find out, do I like sitting through meetings? Do I actually like listening to people complaining and problem solving together? Do I like help forging consensus and those kinds of things? So that would really help too. And then be ready to work really hard. And you can run in different levels in different ways too. But running and winning makes the biggest difference of all. And I'm sure there's lots more that I could talk about strategies and how to run a campaign. But I really think the most important thing is actual contact with the voters. So I spend a lot of time knocking on doors, going out to the community and talking to folks. And I think that's the most important thing. And I will say that sometimes it isn't necessarily, oh, do I agree with you on all your issues? But it's, oh, do I think you're the kind of person that will care about me and do a good job representing me in city government? Somebody I can talk to, somebody who will listen to me, and somebody who will take me into consideration while they make those decisions. So that's, I guess, a little bit of a...
Yeah, great advice. Well, I guess just to close us out, why don't you let folks know how they can support your race, website, other details, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, www.camgordon.org is the website. People can go there and learn more about the campaign. We are trying to do fundraising right till the end, so any donations are welcome. We just printed more lawn signs. We have to do some more mailings to get out the vote. That it would really be appreciated. You can also Google Cam Gordon and probably find me on Facebook and Twitter. People are also welcome to call me if they have questions, 612-296-0579, and I'm happy to talk.
Great. Well, that is certainly one of the more accessible elected officials, I think, giving out your phone number. Well, it's really been a pleasure getting to know you, Cam. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck in these final months of the campaign, and I look forward to seeing you back in City Council next year.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and thanks for everybody who's working to make this a better world with the Greens.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Great. It was so fabulous to finally get a chance to talk to Cam Gordon, and that advice he gave at the very end about whether, how to run for office yourself and what it takes to be a good candidate. All of the candidates that we saw tonight, Bart, Kearni, and Cam, all started out as regular folks sitting around their kitchen table, talking to their family, and finally making the decision to run for office. And you can too. So I want to leave you tonight with two important websites, gp.org/run and gp.org/ccc. If you want to run for office, go to gp.org/run. That's the place where you're going to tell us about yourself and sign up to get information and resources and support. But the only way we can provide that support is if other people donate to the party. And that's the gp.org/ccc for the Coordinated Campaign Committee. That's our dedicated donation page. Those funds go directly to our committee where we support candidates. We make cash donations to our candidates every year, and we are able to produce resources and training and material like tonight's broadcast and other trainings that we do throughout the year. So you've heard it tonight, folks. The Green Party is the place to be. We've got those 10 key values and our 4 pillars that are really guiding all of our candidates, whether they're talking about environmental justice, racial justice, economic justice. All of it is happening in our local communities. The Green Party has the answers and the solutions, and we need more people to take that message forward across the country. So please join with us. Join us as supporters, join us as donors, join us as volunteers, and of course, join us as candidates. Have a wonderful night, and thank you all who made this broadcast possible, especially the Coordinated Campaign Committee and our producer, Michael O'Neill. Have a wonderful night, everyone. Bye-bye.
I'm the only candidate who grew up in Astoria my entire life. So when you go to the ballot box on November 2nd, make sure you vote for Edwin de Jesus, the only true Astorian running as an independent for New York City Council's 22nd District.
Hi, my name is Stephen Wright. I'm running for mayor of City of Forks. I'd like to talk to you today about some of my platforms, some of the initiatives I'd like to get started with if I'm elected. First of all, the funding, most of it will be coming from the American Rescue Plan and other grants. And the issues I'd like to start addressing is one, COVID, which is a major concern with everybody, including the food shortages that are now affecting the schools. I believe if we use some of the vacant land to grow some of our food for the schools and other people, people needy in the community, we might be able to provide a better path towards providing food for everybody that's sustainable and reliable. I believe that we can increase our sterilization techniques to reduce COVID spread and other pathogens using automation of UV lights and timers. I'd like to talk to you some about our infrastructure that we have problems with right now. Many of you know that we have unreliable internet, and for some that's a minor inconvenience, but for others that means that you can't work from home, or your ATM at the work where you're working at isn't working, or the owners aren't making any money because the transactions can't go forward. The City of Forks government officials, government functions also are affected by this. I plan and I want to bring in reliable internet for all the City of Forks. Another big issue that we have today is our playground. Some of us that go to the playground notice that there are rusted bars and other things that need to be painted and maintained on the playground that haven't been, and I think it may be because of our budget issues with the city. That brings me on to the next issue, where we have an economy issue as far as producing enough revenue to meet the demands of the city. I believe bringing in hemp farming and producing could add additional revenue as well as educational opportunities for the City of Forks. I believe if we keep on the path of being sustainable and providing for our community, then we can move forward and progress as a community together. Thank you, and vote for me.
Your mama's a bum. Young lady,
No, I'm a woman. I'm not a young lady. I am a woman.
First with your mama. No one, watch this, has ever called me.
Chester is unique.
Chester is a lost and forgotten kingdom.
Chester is potential.
Hi, I'm Kearni Warren. Chester is my home, and it has been for generations. I grew up in the Ruth L. Bennett Homes neighborhood with my mother, Reverend Bernice Warren, who taught me the values of a true Chester leader: respect, dignity, and most of all, truth. I'm running for Chester City Council to continue my mother's legacy and to restore our city's leadership to these values. The mayor's treatment of our residents at that meeting represents the horrible way City Hall has treated this city, our home. It's time to take out the trash. It's time to restore our parks and infrastructure. It's time to redevelop our waterfront for Chester residents, not incinerators or soccer stadiums. This November, vote for me, Kearni Warren, for Chester City Council.
Hi neighbors, I'd like to take this moment to formally introduce myself. My name is Connor Mulvaney. I'm a lifelong Pittsburgher, and for the past 3 years, I've lived in Brookline with my partner Christine and our dog Lucy. I've worked as a photojournalist, a collegiate cross-country coach, a retail specialist, a sustainability consultant, and am currently a union baker. I'm also active in mobility advocacy in Pittsburgh's southern neighborhoods, regional economic development nonprofits, as well as our local Green Party. And now, I am announcing my intent to run for Pittsburgh City Council. Why? Because I am alarmed that the systemic injustices in our city are only worsening. Because our rivers are still unsafe to swim in, our air is still unsafe to breathe. Because our mayor and city council members are advocating the defunding of critical public services during a pandemic and economic depression. Because the very design of our city creates barriers to necessities and services for those who don't own personal vehicles. That's 1 in 5 of all Pittsburghers.
We can change our city for the better, but we must recognize the problems in Pittsburgh's past and present if we are to make a brighter future. Our city government is controlled by a single political party that has been dominant for nearly 90 years and has always been controlled by the wealthiest in our city. Unopposed candidates in general elections are frequent, and the acceptance of large campaign donations from big businesses and political insiders is rampant. This is not a healthy democracy. It's no wonder our city was ill-prepared to address the crises of injustice, public health, and climate change that we now face, when it is still led by an unethical political class that glides through election after election. But we can join together against these forces seeking to further divide us. We can make our city livable for all our neighbors, regardless of economic status, race, religion, sex, or gender identity. We can get there together.
Hey Green Party friends, this is Craig Cayetano. I'm running again this year for Hawthorne Town Council. This time it's not for just Ward 3, it's for the whole town at large. There are 7 candidates vying for 3 seats. We've been out and about in the town today, our classic car show outside our farmers market, so just wanted to report in, let you know that we are still working on local issues. We're able to reuse a lot of our materials from the last race, while we also raise some money to try to print up new lawn signs and new door hangers to hand out this fall. We have early voting this year starting on October 23rd through the 31st, and then of course we'll be out strong on election day. So the season has begun, so I hope that I can earn your support again as you're green here in New Jersey. And if you have any questions, please check us out on Facebook at Cayetano for Council, also at Green for Hawthorne on Twitter, and Cayetano for Council on Instagram. We have a website with a big platform. Now we're up to 30 points on a platform for town council race. So we do bring real ideas, fresh ideas to the community. And I hope Greens out there see this, support us, donate whatever they can, and hopefully you'll have the drive to run for office in your town next year. Thanks again. Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all of my fellow Greens, I am K.A. Hurd Jr., running for the 2021 Cincinnati City Council. I'm running to bring unity to our city. I'm running to bridge the divide between our neighborhoods, between our east and west. I am running to bring love and peace to our city. I will push for grassroots democracy to make sure that we are engaged. We notify our residents, our voters, our homeowners, our taxpayers about different projects, development, crime, and everything that is very important to their community. We have 52 communities right here in Cincinnati, and all of them matters to me. Here's our website. Our website is stayheardcommittee.weebly.com, where you can find so much about me. You can see how I stand on different issues. You can contribute and or you can volunteer. And also, if you know anybody else that may be in Cincinnati or would like to contribute, volunteer in any way, please feel free to share our website. Once again, it's stayheardcommittee.weebly.com. I am K.A. Hurd Jr., running for the 2021 Cincinnati City Council, where I am committed to making sure any and everybody that wants to be heard, and once heard, stay heard. And I approve that message.